Liam had always believed that time, like the tides rolling beneath the cliffs of Malibu, would keep circling back and affording him one more chance to repair whatever he had fractured, one more sunrise to apologize to his father. One more sunset to steady the uneasy truce between Hope and Steffi, one more breath to tuck his daughters in and promise them that Daddy would never leave, but the brutal verdict of the CT scan had ended all illusions. An inoperable glioblastoma threaded deep inside his temporal lobe, devouring minutes faster than any scandal or corporate mutiny ever had, and every specialist who studied the charts spoke with the same gentle dread. 6 months if the tumor slept. Fewer if it woke hungry. At first, Liam fought the news with the same frantic optimism that had once sent him sprinting across runways to catch flights bound for improbable reconciliations. He immersed himself in clinical trial spreadsheets, adopted kale smoothies like sacramental wine, and endured a punishing regimen of steroids that left his hands trembling each time he lifted Kelly's school lunchbox. Yet real hope dwindled with each follow-up MRI, each colored heat map showing the lesion creeping closer to the speech center that stored the lullabies he sang to Beth and the secret. Silly jokes he shared with Steffi back when they still believed love was a shield against the world's sorrows. Slowly, fear ceded to a grim clarity. If the universe refused him a miracle, then he would forge his own grace by confronting every loose end he had ever tied in a reckless knot. 3 tasks stepped into focus like bullet points on a final script rewrite, and the ticking clock of his body demanded that he tackle them before the tumor stole the days, the words, or the very self he recognized in the mirror. The first task forced him onto the Spencer Publications skydeck, where the ocean wind raked through Bill's silver-streaked hair and sent flagship banners snapping like temper against steel. Father and son had parted on cruel terms after the Kuala Lumpur acquisition fiasco. Bill had called Liam naive, Liam had called Bill heartless, and they had scorched months in silence, both too proud to concede the other's wounded honesty. Now Liam stood beside the helipad railing, trying to ignore the vertigo pulsing behind his eyes, and told his father about the mass lodged deeper than any sword Bill might brandish to defend the family empire. The confession cracked something tectonic beneath Bill's imperious facade. His voice wavered as he whispered that he could buy hospitals, hire Nobel laureates, or even drown the world in cash, if it meant ripping the cancer out by its malignant roots. Liam shook his head, explaining that money could not bribe biology, and for the first time since he was a teenager begging to intern in the press room, he saw Bill become simply a man confronted with the one adversary he could not bully: mortality. They talked until the sky turned violet and Los Angeles glittered below like circuitry on a faulty motherboard. Bill recalling Liam's first baseball swing, Liam recalling how Bill once taught him to ride waves instead of running from them. And though neither uttered the word goodbye, each recognized the fragile truce as a farewell disguised in father-son code. Bill promised to hunt every experimental protocol nonetheless, but Liam extracted a vow in return. Should the worst come, Bill would not drown his granddaughters in grief-born vengeance, but uplift them with the fierce guidance only a Spencer patriarch could give. Task 2 unfolded inside the Forrester executive studio, where bolts of silk and crepe de chine cascaded from chrome racks like waterfalls of possibility. Hope, luminous yet steely, had returned to Forrester Creations after months of soul-searching, and Steffi Forrester, equal parts ice and fire, oversaw the couture division with a visionary zeal that sometimes masked old scars. Their rivalry was a tapestry woven from betrayals, shared motherhood, and the invisible threads of a man whose love had once been their most coveted accessory. Liam scheduled a joint design review under the pretext of weighing in on a new hope for the future collaboration, but when the models left and the interns switched off the spotlight rigs, he locked the door, sat the 2 women on opposite ends of the cutting table, and delivered the truth with the measured cadence of a closing argument, His tumor had marched past the line of retreat, and he would not permit their lingering resentments to poison what remained of Beth and Kelly's childhood. Shock robbed Hope of speech. Fury cut color into Steffi's cheeks, but before either could unleash blame for kisses stolen or vows broken, Liam offered a plea rooted not in romance, but in parenthood. He spoke of school recitals where two mothers cheering side by side would mean more than any eulogy, of birthdays where a single cake might bear candles for both sisters without forcing them to choose which side of the room to stand on, and of the inevitable day when photographs and bedtime stories would be all that kept his spirit alive. Tears blurred Hope's mascara into ink smudges. Steffi gripped Liam's trembling fingers until her knuckles whitened. And in that fragile hush, they chose vulnerability over vanity. Hope apologized for every time her faith in destiny ignored Steffi's dignity. Steffi admitted that using corporate leverage to undercut Hope's line had been a dagger disguised as business. They agreed on a joint capsule collection whose profits would seed a scholarship fund for both girls. More important than any contract, though, was the unspoken covenant that if Liam's chair at parent-teacher night sat empty, they would occupy it together, presenting a united front so formidable that no child could doubt she was loved beyond measure. The final task drove Liam to legal offices, safety deposit vaults, and the quiet intimacy of a home studio where he recorded messages between spikes of pain that sometimes stole his words mid-sentence. He drafted a will stipulating that his stake in Spencer Publications be split into trusts, releasing funds for Beth and Kelly upon milestones. He wished he might see graduations, startup launches, maybe even weddings beneath the same Malibu cliffs that had witnessed so many of his reckonings. He penned letters in ink that shook across the page. One for Kelly explaining how her laughter once healed him more than any radiation. One for Beth promising that her gentle heart was the world's greatest superpower. One for Steffi thanking her for showing him the difference between thrill and home. And one for Hope urging her never to let grief eclipse the creative spark that made her garments declarations of empathy. He summoned Finn to the beach house at dusk. The doctor arrived wary, conscious of old jealous ghosts, but Liam greeted him with candor. He trusted Finn to guide Kelly's medical milestones, to speak honestly about her father's battle when curiosity turned into pain, and above all to stand sentinel over her dreams, just as he did with his own son Hayes. Finn, undone by the generosity extended after months of tense coexistence, gave his solemn oath. Later, Liam called Carter Walton to the Cliff House terrace where stars blinked against Pacific black and asked should Hope's heart ever seek steady harbor whether Carter might embrace Beth not as an obligation but as blood. The attorney's eyes filmed with emotion as he pledged to honor any future that fate or love arranged. With finances locked, guardians appointed, and digital folders of pre-recorded birthday greetings stored on encrypted drives, Liam felt the first fragile thread of peace loosen the knot in his chest. But tumors do not honor checklists, and destiny is rarely patient. One late afternoon, while Steffi organized Kelly's art supplies in the sun-washed living room, Liam stepped onto the cliffside balcony to breathe salt air sweeter than morphine. A violent convulsion seized him without warning, muscles contracting, vision fracturing into kaleidoscopic shards, and he crumpled against the railing. Steffi heard the crash, bolted outside, and found him stiff-limbed, eyes rolling, foam flecking his lips. She shouted for Finn, who was on call at the hospital, dialed 911 with shaking thumbs, and knelt to cushion Liam's head with her lap as his body writhed beneath the indifferent sky. For a fleeting second, awareness flickered in Liam's gaze. He met Steffi's eyes, whispered something only the wind understood, and the seizure's crescendo tore consciousness away. Paramedics arrived to a scene, soaked in memories and sea spray, loaded him onto a gurney, and sped inland with sirens scattering gulls overhead. but the flatline came before they crossed the Pacific Coast Highway. In that sterile ambulance glow, under the frantic compression of EMT palms that could not restart destiny, Liam Spencer's heart surrendered at 38 years of age. News ricocheted through Los Angeles like a garment rack toppling at Fashion Week. Bill collapsed against the obsidian windows of his penthouse, fists pounding glass until his knuckles bled raw grief. Hope retreated to the Forrester rooftop garden, clutching the sample dress Liam had once praised as proof she could design hope itself, and screamed against the sunset until her voice fractured. Steffi walked the sands beneath the cliff house barefoot, repeating his final half-formed whisper sounded like always until the ebbing tide erased her footprints. Yet in the weeks that followed, heartbreak became scaffolding for the very future Liam had assembled. Bill funded a neuro-oncology research wing at University Hospital named after his son. Hope and Steffi launched the Spencer Sisters collection with a runway show dedicated to brain tumor awareness. Backstage, they held hands when Kelly and Beth twirled in finale gowns stitched from remnants of Liam's favorite flannel shirt. Finn volunteered for the inaugural surgical fellowship in Liam's memorial wing. And Carter, now counsel to both Spencer Trusts, arranged annual letters to the girls keyed to Liam's recorded messages so that his wisdom would arrive precisely when they needed it most. On the anniversary of his passing, Hope and Steffi took Beth and Kelly to the overlook where wildflowers now grew between rocks scarred by spray. They read Liam's final letter aloud, the one where he wrote that endings are only corners in stories too vast for any single life to comprehend, that love is a tide stronger than tumors, betrayals, or death, and that his daughters would forever carry his courage as marrow in their bones. As twilight silvered the water, the children released paper lanterns that drifted upward like new stars, and in their flickering ascent the two women saw proof that Liam's ultimate wish had come true. In the space where rivalry once burned, unity now glowed, guiding the next generation home.